We often focus on the big, flashy cyber threats, the ones that make headlines, but sometimes the real danger is hiding somewhere, well, unexpected. Like in software you use every day, but maybe don't think twice about. Today, we're doing a deep dive into exactly that, a cyber espionage campaign targeting a tool that flew under most people's radar.
That's right. This isn't about noisy ransomware. It's much more subtle, targeted. We're going to unpack how it worked, what it means for security overall, and give you those crucial insights.
Okay, perfect. But first, just a quick word from our sponsor.
This deep dive is brought to you by Stonefly. They're leaders in enterprise storage, backup, disaster recovery, AI storage, and cloud solutions. If you're looking for secure, ransomware-proof storage, Stonefly sells air-gapped and immutable options. You can contact sales at stonefly.com to schedule a demo. All right, so the application at the center of this is called Output Messenger. Honestly, I hadn't heard of it before this came up, and you're probably not alone. It's a self-hosted enterprise chat application. And that lower profile is exactly what made it appealing. Unlike the big name Slack, Teams, which get tons of security scrutiny.
Right. Less attention means potentially more room for attackers to operate unnoticed.
Precisely. And this threat actor, known as Marble Dust, certainly took advantage of that.
Marble dust.
Okay.
And they've been active with this since, what, April of last year?
Seems so, yes.
Yeah.
Since April 2024. So quite a while to be exploiting this vulnerability.
And the vulnerability itself. It's a 0-day.
It is. CVE 2025-27920, a zero-day directory traversal flaw in the Output Messenger Server Manager.
Directory traversal.
Yeah.
Remind us what that means in simple terms.
Sure. Think of it like having a key that's only supposed to open one specific door, maybe a supply closet. But because of a flaw in the building's design, that same key suddenly works on every door, the main office, the server room, everything. Digitally, it lets an attacker access files and directories they absolutely should not have permission to see or modify.
Okay, yeah, that's bad. Very bad. So how did Marble Dust actually leverage this flaw?
Well, first they needed to get authenticated, basically log in legitimately to the server manager part. We don't know the exact initial method for sure, but based on Marble Dust's history, things like DNS hijacking are suspected.
DNS hijacking, like sending users to a fake login page instead of the real one?
Exactly that. Or using typo-squatted domains URLs that look very similar to the real one, hoping someone makes a typo. Once they have those credentials, they use that directory traversal flaw, that master key, to upload a malicious VBS file.
And where did they put it?
Right into the Windows startup folder on the server.
Ah, clever. So it runs automatically every time the server boots up.
You got it. Persistence. That VBS script's job was then to launch another piece of malware, omserverservice.exe. This one was designed to look like a legitimate output messenger service file, but it was actually a backdoor written in GoLang.
GoLang. Why
Wow.
choose that? Any particular advantage?
Yeah, a couple. GoLang compiles into a single binary that can run on different systems, Windows, Linux, etc., without much change. Makes it flexible. Plus, sometimes GoLang malware can be a bit trickier for older, signature-based antivirus to pick up.
So this backdoor is running. What's it doing? Calling home.
Pretty much. It connects out to a command and control domain, api.wordinfos.com. It checks in, sends some basic info about the compromised host, and then waits for instructions from Marble Dust.
And what kind of instructions were they sending?
Well, we know in at least one case they used it for data exfiltration, stealing sensitive files. They even packaged the files up neatly into a RAR archive first.
And how did they get the archive out?
They use a legitimate tool, actually.
Yeah.
PutYourWise command line client, plink.exe. It's normally used for secure remote connections, like SSH, but here they just repurposed it to ship the stolen data out quietly.
Okay, so that's the server-side compromise. But you mentioned users. Were client machines hit too?
Yes, it seems so. It looks like they also managed to tamper with the Output Messenger installer files themselves. So when some users installed or updated the software, they got the real Output Messenger.exe. But bundled alongside it was another GoLang backdoor, all-in-client-service.exe.
Wow, hitting both ends. And this client backdoor, did it also connect to that same C2 domain?
Yep, same place. api.wordinfos.com, creating a pretty wide net inside affected organizations.
Let's talk attribution, Marble Dust. You mentioned potential links to Turkey. What points that way?
It's based on a few things. Their known tactics, techniques, and procedures, or TTPs like the DNS hijacking, the credential harvesting focus. There are also overlaps observed with other tracked groups, sometimes called Sea Turtle or UNC 326, which have also been associated with Turkish interests. But maybe the strongest indicator is the victimology. They consistently target organizations, especially in telecom and government, in the Middle East and Europe, whose interests might conflict with Ankar's.
So more state-sponsored espionage than, say, financial crime.
That's strongly indicated, yes. And the use of a zero-day exploit really backs that up.
Right, because finding or buying a zero-day isn't trivial. It suggests resources or maybe a high degree of motivation.
Both are possible. It shows a definite step up in technical capability or operational urgency compared to just using known patchable flaws. It's a significant investment.
This whole incident really underscores a point, doesn't it? That security can't just be about the big, famous software.
Absolutely. These lesser-known, perhaps niche enterprise tools can be high-value targets precisely because they don't get the same level of scrutiny.
Companies might feel secure with a self-hosted solution, but if it's not actively maintained and audited.
The obscurity becomes vulnerability itself. Everyone's hardening the front door, but maybe leaving a side window open because it doesn't look important.
So immediate advice for anyone listening who might be using Output Messenger. Patching is step one, obviously.
Definitely. Update the server to 2.0.62 or newer, and the client to 2.0.63 plus. That's critical. But also audit your systems. Look for unexpected VBS files or EXEs, especially in startup locations.
And network monitoring.
Yes. Monitor outbound connections specifically to that C2 domain, api.wordinfos.com. Block it if you see it. Also, check logs for any unusual or unauthorized use of plink.exe or just general SSH activity.
And if you find a machine talking to that domain,
Isolate it immediately. Assume compromise and start your incident response.
this whole directory traversal thing, it feels like we've been hearing more about it lately. Didn't CISA and the FBI put out alerts?
You're right, they did. They highlighted directory traversal as a persistent and frequently exploited class of vulnerability. They even mentioned a couple of other recent CVEs, CVE 2024-1708 and CVE 2024-2345, as examples of this same problem cropping up again and again.
I think I remember seeing the term unforgivable used in relation to these flaws.
Yes, because honestly, the industry has known how to prevent directory traversal for decades. It's covered in basic secure coding practices. It's CWE 22 in the common weakness enumeration, improper handling of path names. It's a well-understood mistake.
So the agencies are pushing for developers to do better from the start.
Exactly. They're pushing hard for secure by design principles. The idea is that manufacturers need to take ownership of their customer security. Build security from the ground up. Don't just treat it as an add-on or something the customer has to figure out. Be transparent about security efforts.
Makes sense. What specific things should developers be doing to stop directory traversal?
Formal testing, for one. Using guidelines from places like OWASP to specifically hunt for these flaws during development. And crucially, properly validating and sanitizing any input that might be used in a file path. Don't trust user input when dealing with file system operations.
And the consequences if they get it wrong, as we saw here.
Pretty severe. Unauthorized reading of sensitive files, modifying or deleting critical data, planting more malware, moving laterally through the network. It's a major entry point.
And just quickly circling back DNS hijacking, you mentioned that as a possible initial access method for marble dust. What's the goal there, generally?
With DNS hijacking, the attacker interferes with how domain names, like google.com, get translated into IP addresses. They might redirect you to a fake site to steal your password, or maybe intercept your traffic without you knowing. It undermines that fundamental trust in navigating the web.
And it happens fairly often.
Yeah, surveys show a surprisingly high percentage of organizations have experienced some kind of DNS attack. It's a common tactic.
Okay. So, wrapping this up, the big takeaway feels like vigilance across all software, not just the usual suspects.
Absolutely. This case study with Marble Dust and Output Messenger is a stark reminder. Sophisticated actors will find weaknesses in less obvious places, especially if they're targeting specific information. The use of a zero-day shows their determination.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other software, maybe specific to your industry or your company, could be that overlooked vector? Something to definitely think about.
A crucial question for any security team.
And one last reminder. For robust protection against these kinds of evolving threats, think about Stonefly. They offer air-gapped and immutable storage solutions, which are key for ransomware-proof storage and overall data security. Schedule a demo by contacting sales@stonefly.com. That's sales@stonefly.com.